Hello everyone, welcome to our small cinema stage. My name is Tomáš, I'm host of this discussion and I'm happy that Honza come to our stage here to talk about state of CMS in Lucerna Cinema. And first question has to be, how did you enjoy the presentation?
Yeah, I did enjoy it. I was a bit afraid if it's not going to take too long. And Martin, before me, had his talk much longer than anticipated, so it was a bit time stressed, but then I think went quite well.
Perfect. Now we are here to discuss what was missing in this presentation and, of course, answer your questions. But let me ask first my question, because I know what was in the presentation, and I was really surprised how big mess is in this CMS world. And I was surprised about WordPress and market share. What do you think? Why WordPress has this strong position in this field so long? In comparison with your framework, if I remember it correctly, there was no Mark A. Maybe in hosted version there was Mark A for up to date, but in normal version no A, but still 75% market share.
Yeah. So let me begin with the first part of the question. Because I think the mess is in the whole software development. We just as the expectations of the audience got bigger and bigger, we devised better and better technologies. However, people who devise them and know how to use them are the few seniors. And the market needs just so many developers. So there's a lot of junior, mid-level developers who are actually using technology they didn't have time to study.
Yeah.
And they're learning as they go. And that makes a lot of mess. And of course, all of the CMSs are made by these people. So they obviously have some shortcomings. And some shortcomings are based on, well, this is how internet works, and this is how hosting works, etc. I think we're moving into the, let's say, platform world where everyone will have ACE in up-to-date, because otherwise, I mentioned in the presentation the number $1.5 trillion, let's say, lost that was lost based on software not updated in US. And about the WordPress market share, well, I think that WordPress is the only CMS brand that's got recognition from clients. So people are coming and saying, hey, I want to use WordPress, because they actually think that someone can take over. They have no idea if someone can, how it works, etc. They just know, my friend, all of them use WordPress. I want to use WordPress too. So, and it just keeps on, the ball keeps on rolling. So I think that's the reason. And also from a developer perspective, when you take WordPress, you pretty much will do everything, So if you did 3 projects with that, you will somehow make the fourth, and of course you will choose a technology that because it's much easier for you to estimate the project, and as developers for small especially for small websites, the price competition is pretty tough. Where students are coming in with lower prices, etc. So you need to use something in which you are efficient and know you will deliver on time and budget. So that you will use something that you're familiar with.
And do you know anything about the ball? Is the ball bigger and bigger, or what was the trend with WordPress?
Yeah, the ball is getting bigger. But actually, I think that the tracking softwares are scanning the internet and looking for some headers, etc., are either on HTTP level or in code. And the headless CMSs don't leave any trace. So it will be very hard as we move on to measure those. However, headless is always harder to implement. So I think that we will see a quick move to no code. You know, the market share of WordPress will, in a big part, will be taken by Webflow, Squarespace, etc. By the way, if you look into those graphs, you will see this trend that it's slowly coming, and there's HubSpot, CMS, etc. Stuff that you just will click and it will make some sort of a website. I think in Czech Republic we actually tend to make more visually pleasing sites. In US they don't care that much and they are happy to use templates and just, you know, quickly do the landing page they want, put some traffic at it and see how it goes. So I think this will be one part, and the other part will be, I think, moving from outsourcing where my data and content is hosted to agencies. And I know companies that have 300 websites, and for each of them they have an agency, you know. So I think we will see that there will be some small either internal or outsourced team, but for the whole let's say content and data management. And we will be hiring agencies who will do these nice presentations, but they will just, you know, take data from the API and that's it.
It makes sense. Okay, we are here for you. So if you have questions.
Thank you. I have a reservation for the word mess you just used. I see there's different options. It was nicely seen in the graph that some cover some of the axes nicely and in others. I know that probably you have in mind the ideal world where everything is possible, but you know, not every time is everything possible because it goes against. So my question was, I was surprised that WordPress and Drupal were some sort not mentioned in the headless category, because I think that the WordPress API movement and Drupal with its, I sort of see it like they are more the data management systems. In Drupal, in more focus on the data management system in Drupal than in the WordPress. So I thought that there could be used this way, and I think it's pushed in the WordPress community. I do not follow it because I think that the software in its internal state is not super intended for the task it's taken on. Like if you install it, there will be a lot of missing features. You will be forced to install a lot of plugins, and then it comes to a decision mess because the plugins, the variety of the plugins will be so large that uninformed people will not know what to choose, and that will make it to the better grades you shown, which is somehow elevated by the managed services. But then I was surprised that the managed services didn't have lower extensibility marks, because I know that the JavaScript injection is the last resort, for example, for the file. No, it's not. The Git-based stuff, where you just have the static file set for that. I think that to put there anything interactive or anything commands or forms, you are just limited to the JavaScript injection. So I think all the stuff should be at the graph that you show in the end. I think that all of them should be to the level where you put the Git-based files, and it's not the case. You have some.
That's actually a good point. I think you're right. Yeah.
So if you can comment on the Drupal part.
Well, I think I'll start with the WordPress, because I think WordPress can have API. It has something default, which is crazy, and I heard quite okay stuff about the GraphQL plugin. However, why I'm not actually adding them in this category is that when you use WordPress, I think you expect that you're gonna just put some stuff together, install plugins, and you will have the site done. And you're losing all that when you use API. So because you have to code the whole stuff, there's mostly no prepared, let's say, library to consume data, etc., etc. So I think that you will just end up having a lot of work with the WordPress monolith behind it, you know. So that's one part. And the Drupal actually is moving very heavily into headless. I think they are promoting it more and more. So we might think of it in this way.
I think that Drupal was originally designed like headless, but
I think I think it in one version. I'm not like I've seen like 3 projects in Drupal, so I'm heavy in that. However, the categories are actually, you know, mixable a lot. Okay, you know, when you have flat file Git based, it's obviously clear. But when you take headless, platform, and let's say classic CMSs, you can mesh it together and, you know, come up with different groups. So I did this division, and it makes sense from my perspective, as I think it covers the common usage. So the common usage of Drupal isn't API based. However, some developers can do that, and we can discuss if it's like a good choice because they have a lot of code behind that they might not need and they're not using, and it's that code for their project. Or if it's a right choice. For example, I would definitely argue if there's an agency who's doing projects in Drupal, they should use Drupal every time because it makes them effective and they can have some process for development, etc. And they shouldn't switch between stuff, you know. So that's definitely one example when the choices are not dependent on, let's say, the value for the client, but his value will come from we will deliver on time and on budget. Because otherwise we can go into this project is how it's called, research and development, as mostly, you know, a lot of custom development ends up in a phase of research and development, and nobody can estimate that.
I think the situation is much more complicated. You can mix it much more and more.
Yeah.
If you have hosted version or WordPress,
and it will definitely depend on what each of those managed services, you know, allows. Yeah. You know, for example, WP Engine can be much stricter for what code you can push there. Others platform can be much more flexible.
But it doesn't solve the database schema of WordPress. I understand the numbers going up for WordPress because it's easy to run it, but if you people know how to use it, how to edit it, they are used to the way WordPress does content editing. But if you look at the storage, you will not like it, and it's a shame because if 3/4 of the world are used to do content management in a way that is not properly saved in the database. I find it an unfortunate fact, matter of fact.
Yeah, but the thing is that and we see that with no code, you know, the world doesn't care how its data are saved until you come to a point where you need to use the data on multiple touch points, and in different scenarios, and in that case you will start looking for different solutions. So I'm not sure if even the whole headless market will be here in 10 years. You know, we can figure out that it wasn't the right way to, and we have to split the data and the administration as well to take care of the more complicated use cases, and everything rest will be, you know, done in no code, which actually WordPress is doing a lot of work in this area, and they're making their editor more and more look like Webflow, let's say.
I think now you opened a very interesting part of the discussion because I would like to clean the mess. We have a mess. Like a little bit clean the situation and try to.
You're ambitious, right?
I would like to try to find some answers, yes, for some specific maybe usage or maybe. Are there any, because now you open that you should have a, let's say, border between data and what manages this data and how you consume data. But according to the situation what we currently have, is not so okay, contemporary, maybe change the word. In the near future.
That is the case. WordPress is not a content management system, it's a blogging software. It's just for blogging, and it's fine for blogging. The data section is fine for blogging.
Yes. And with this is my question connected, because I think if I have some specific I don't know, project, like I would like to build a blog, or I would like to build some kind of newspaper presentation or something, can I catch something and choose the right solution for me, or is still, because the framework what you introduced is complicated. You have to think about a lot of things. I'd like to find some easier.
Well, I think there are like two major points to consider when you would want to, choose the right platform for you. And the first one is, okay, who's doing the project? Is it an internal one, or am I outsourcing it? Because the decision has to be, or should be made by the client. It's not in most cases, because they don't know anything about it, and it will take a lot of time before they hire, experienced online managers who had their career doing websites, and now they switched to basically management roles in some larger organizations. They have the experience, but so this is important, because if the project is internal, you will probably be hiring a new team, or if you're not, you have to work with what they know already. And if you're outsourcing it, well, you mostly choosing the right partner for the project and not that much dependent on technology, because it's better for them to use something that they're familiar with, and they won't make a mess from it, than to say, okay, I want to do it in this technology because it will make everything shiny. Technology won't make everything shiny. It mostly makes some stuff easier, some stuff harder. But that's it probably. So I think that even if we would want to go to a specific use case, like, okay, I'm making a newspaper presentation, and what should I choose? It will depend a lot. For example, in which state is the let's say client or a reader platform in the media, because it has some API or not, and it has a Drupal integration, and therefore I'm sticking with Drupal because that's the only way I can work with that, etc. So there's a lot of decisions, or
and try to look at this situation from the client point as well, because sometimes clients, I don't know, describe, okay, we need whatever, and we need WordPress, because we heard that it's great, and we have to find a way, we like developers, how to convince, how to educate, how to educate clients which have no experience, and maybe how to push internal teams to change their mind, because you described they are familiar with something, so they will use the same thing on the next project, but maybe it doesn't make sense. And the current situation is not easy. So I'm still trying to think how to make this situation more, how to say it, not clean, but more, how to do the easy decision based on something, how to find some touch points, what should I compare, and so on. Yeah. So I
Well, for me, it ended up okay. I won. Well, now self-promo, right? Why we did Contemporary is actually our answers to these questions, you know, because we were in a situation, okay, everything's a mess. You end up with a strangely done database with no structure. You end up writing a lot of code by someone who will leave the company in 2 years, and how the code is written will get lost. So if there's some specific conditions in the code at line 49 and 38 that makes one administrator not to do something or something like that, it will just, you know, be lost for everyone, and the project will quickly become unmanageable. So I think that we should optimize writing as few lines of code as possible. So that leads me to some like low-code platforms or least minimum custom code, whatever we call it. That's one part, and the other part is that I think we shouldn't try to let's say outsource to the platform the structure of that data. So we should actually think about, okay, what am I going to do here? Okay, this is articles, it has readers, it has some sort of taxonomy, this, and I should start a project that I understand the content and the data that it will manage, and from that I want to write as few lines of code as possible to make the project run with multiple roles, etc. Because for larger projects I need these things. And then on top of that, of course, through the API, I'm going to consume something. And where I think the headless makes a lot of sense is that I'm finding out that nobody wants to change the CMS. You know, it's way too much work. So if they can change just the front end, it works fine. And therefore, it makes much, I think, from my perspective, it makes much more sense to have on the back end something that will be here for a long time and will endure changing of developers in the team and managers, etc. A lot of projects these days is dependent that someone knows how the whole thing is structured, and that I think the biggest pain point of the whole industry. We just don't document stuff enough because it's hard, and almost every project that agency does is somehow customized, and two people on the team know what they did. And if they're not there, even if the agency is there and they're not there, it's mostly a lot of looking around how to do a simple thing. It could even be simple, but still someone spend a day going through the code and finding out what he or she should change.
Yeah. I like this idea, and self-promo on this stage is totally okay, I think. Guys, or lady.
Can you just more elaborate on the platform? Because somehow I think it's a headless stuff with the head included, but I'm not sure if that is the case or how you really mean it.
Yeah. Well, what we're doing with Contemporary is we call it content and data platform for your content and data. We don't want to call it like a management or something, because it sometimes just saves the data from somewhere and put it somewhere else. But what I think is unique on the market at the moment, Sanity is close by, is that we strictly divided the administration and the data structure. So you just design your data structure. Our platform will give you GraphQL API. That's it. And next to that, completely different repository, project, whatever, you can build one or many administrations. And it's basically it's complicated, but simply put, it's a React.js SDK. You get some components, and you're just saying, okay, I want to have edit page here, and I want to edit field, whatever here.
Yeah,
and
like
so that's it.
Like the CRUD forms are sort of prepared, but I can customize them, right?
We don't generate like any default for you, because we think that it actually doesn't, taking the data schema and thinking how someone wants to manage that doesn't make sense. So we're forcing the developer to, quickly do his administration. And we're taking care of the state management and how the data are saved and loaded, etc. But he just have to describe us in React, okay, I want to have this page and there are these fields.
And it's described in a configuration?
It's React.js standard, so you can even put there your own component, etc. So it's very flexible in these terms. But actually, these days we're doing much more like internal software there than CMSs. The CMSs is one of the use cases, but what we're currently finding out is there's a lot of very broken internal software written in some 10 years old PHP nobody understands, and these apps doesn't do like crazy things. They mostly have some table, some 2-3 rows who are coming into it, changing some sort of a status of, for example, order or whatever, and because the administration is this flexible, we can do stuff like that. And I don't think that we want to be like adding to generate some administration from the schema, because then we would I think it makes sense to force the developer to think about how people will manage the content. I think, because even in WordPress will give you some administration. You can change some stuff, For example, you can even the simple stuff like adding icons and choosing the right text for the menu, so someone understands where to find what he wants to. But people don't do that because they don't have to. And I think from some size of the project, it's better to force the team to think about, okay, I'm going in and I want to add a new article, but there's several other stuff that I need to do when adding an article, and I can do it on one page.
Yeah, I see, but there are some scenarios like in the newspaper, you have the writer, the editor, someone who is responsible for releasing. So I see some sort of a lifetime situations that you need to handle some rejection, returning to the editor, and I think this should be handled and think in advance, be done well in the, so that should be some support from the management. So in the management, I see this sort of scenario. So do you support somehow those roles and those coming back and forth?
Well, we support them on the API level, and of course there's support in the SDK, but the important part comes on the API, where you define the roles and their rights. It's some let's say roles-based access control. You're basically writing declarations how the role, what the role can see, what entities it has access to, either for reading, to updating, to deleting, or to creating, and it can even have access to only some of those fields. There are some conditions. So, for example, editor can always see the article. Or even it doesn't see the article when it's in draft state, So you just say, okay, when there's a role editor and the article is in draft stage, the API won't even return it to the administration, so it can't be shown to the editor in the administration. So that's pretty powerful actually. And regarding the state, etc. In the end, it's basically some sort of a select that's changing or some enum that's changing, and you can of course react on that through the through the API or the declarations of rights. And I think this makes sense because when you then add a different administration for different use case, because it happens to us quite a lot that some people need to see, okay, I want to see the whole picture, but then there are other people like in the newspaper business, for example, a photographer, and he doesn't want to see the whole editor and look for where to upload his pictures, etc. He wants to log in, have one big upload, put it there, maybe even have a differently set up, sorting of the images because he's adding some sort of a metadata, etc. So, and when you do more administration of the same data, then you need to have the control in the API.
Yeah, I see. There are another connected stuff you usually need to handle when you handle content, which is the sale of the content. Like the content could be a product page, and then you want to have the sale process, like putting in the basket and selling it. Do you somehow, if I do a super site on your Contember, where I'll be able to have their product pages which then can be bought and I can ship them and put the
We are leaving the sales process on either Strapi or Shopify SDKs. So we're letting the developer to do it where he wants to, but we don't have any support for buying.
So because there are orders, and you need to have take care of their state as well. So these are some data. This is just payment process, the Stripe inside, but there is some sort of management that the e-commerce stuff has to be done, and it's
well, actually, for example, Shopify SDK will give you the whole checkout with the basket and everything, So, and when you look into the modern eShop implementations, they mostly just basically use the platform or the headless CMS or whatever is behind that, just as a storage for content and what to show the customer, but the state of sklad, stock, etc., is handled by, in most cases, Shopify and their SDK, and it's like, I don't know, 20 lines of code to add Shopify checkout to your page. Just say, okay, this button will call Shopify, and it's this product. You will have both IDs, and that's it. So currently, this is our approach. As we think it's at the moment solving the whole, stock and shipping, etc. It's a big task to do, and I don't think that we can do better than these platforms do at the moment. So we're not heading there, but we're just giving a good platform to handle all the rest.
And those are physical products, and then you have access to the content when you have some sort of subscription, so where you need to check the assets if the user has the subscription. So you also want to use some sort of...
Yeah. Well, we do it pretty simply. We have this user, and he has some state, and when he's stated it's active, the ACL will allow him access to the premium materials. And on the front end side, we either put I kind of like Strapi by Link, which is a Strapi service to handle recurring processes, and it works pretty much as the Shopify SDK. You put them on a page that's managed by Strapi. Okay, it's not their domain. It can be, but whatever, and they handle the whole process and invoice, give you administration, etc., and return to you just, okay, this person is currently active and he has paid. So you just tick the correct checkbox in the database, and the ACL will take care of the rest and shows him the premium content. So I think this is like the easiest way to do that. And one of the reasons that makes sense to do your own administration, because, for example, most people, you don't want to see the custom columns you have there that are just taking care of storing some data that actually, for example, Strapi wants you to save.
Okay, anybody, any other question?
Yeah. We can do less self-promo.
Yeah. I think the message is clear, because split content from your model, your database, connect some other services, and have a strong.
Well, I think the larger topic is let's give front-end developers tool they can use to build their, let's say, own backend, you know. And of course, they won't be able to do everything the backend programmer can do, but they can do like 85% of the work, and the whole team that developing the project can be much smaller and more agile, because there just won't be too many people to synchronize on a new feature. And so this is something that actually that I think why, for example, headless CMSs are getting more popular, because they're mostly written in JavaScript, and the front-end developers are like, okay, this is JavaScript that I understand, and there's no like physical block between this is PHP I don't understand. Yeah. That it's pretty much the same, and they would understand it. Let's leave that aside. But yeah.
Okay. So
you are trying to kill the backend developers?
No, I think there's like so much work actually, you know, in software for the next year. Because in a presentation I mentioned the number of $380 billion per year, which is like custom software development market currently. In 2025, it should be like 650, maybe $700 billion. So that's 2 times, and we definitely don't have enough developers coming into the field to manage that. So we have to find better ways to, or faster ways to do stuff, because otherwise we won't be able to make like a bigger projects.
Definitely, I think that this optimistic message for developers, it's good. Good end for this discussion. Thank you that you.
Well, if we won't start throwing atom bombs on each other, I think there's going to be a lot of work.
Okay, thank you, Honza. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to switch the stage.
Yeah, thanks.